guys, off to our fall prevention event with OT Lifehacker in collaboration with our Purposefully Home, who is my site mentor. We are all set. We've got our bags, and yes, I even got some decor. And more prizes! Yay!
I'm Vanna Whiting it.
Oh, you're showing up my gifts here.
That was actually.
That
one actually smells
oh
really
my
good.
Gosh. Wow.
Let me go get
Which one?
that one.
So this is for your toothbrush.
Oh, I
and it
have
also
one.
lights up.
Oh,
You
it
have one that
lights
lights up? Yeah. Today's fall prevention event was a huge success. Oh, I cannot believe how many people were there at first. So no one had come to the event. We had put it out last week that we're going to be hosting an event, that I'll be hosting an event for falls prevention. So I had been told by the coordinator that when I went last week, you know, not many people will probably show up, and in fact maybe no one will show up, but what we can do is plan B. Plan B, as in plan successful and huge success, was go to the room. If no one's in that designated room for me, then I will come out to them. This senior center has a community area where people have to pass by to get to their rooms for activities, to get to lunch, and so it's really out there in the open. What I did was I had set up shop. I put out all the prizes that we had, which if you want to see what the prizes were, it's in my previous video for the day in the life of me doing my visiting a senior center and visiting the Five Below store. I had done a whole bunch of shopping, got some prizes that were all falls prevention tools that people can use, and so when they won the prizes, I had talked about them. The prizes, showed them what the prizes were for in relation to falls prevention, how you can use them. And the seniors who came by, they saw the prizes on the table, and so I'm giving you here tips on what can work and what might not work if you're doing your own falls prevention program for seniors. And this was a huge experience. Just tiny things had taught me a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm sharing it with you guys now. Some tips for falls prevention programs if you create your own and you're teaching about falls or you're just doing a class. I did bingo cards. So people are big visual learners and people are curious. So if you have some flashy prizes and people look at it and that's it, they might think, oh, you're selling something. So I talked about it with them that, oh, you know, these are prizes for our bingo, and they're like, okay, they walk away. So what I then started to do was just passing out bingo cards, and they're like, oh, bingo. So one of the things, and this is what we learn in occupational therapy too, is that you build on strengths, you build on interests. So a lot of times, seniors, their interest is in bingo. And, you know, to be honest, I love bingo too. Anyone's interest can be in bingos, especially if there's prizes and good flashy prizes that were on the table that people wanted to know about. So I passed out bingo cards, and rather than talking, which is what I'm doing right now, I'm talking your ears off, right? Sorry. So I gave them bingo cards, and they're just like, what is this? I'm like, oh, it's for bingo later. They're like, oh, bingo, there's bingo happening? And so I was like, yes, it's falls prevention bingo. What's falls prevention bingo? Well, here you see some prizes, and I told them about the prizes and how they relate to falls, and they're like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And they're like, oh, where can you get this? I'm like, well, actually, you can get it today, or you can get it at Five Below. So we had a whole bunch of people come for the falls bingo, and I just pass out the bingo cards, and they're just like, oh, when is it? Where is it? You really don't have to say much. If you show the visual bingo, you get interest. And so, in fact, the room got to be too small for our group, so we had to expand the room. We went to another room, had our bingo, and how I did it was I had introduced falls prevention. I did it as the approach was needs assessment piece first, using motivational interviewing. And so for those of you familiar with motivational interviewing and those who are not, motivational interviewing is about kind of understanding the person's story, where they are at, and to help them recognize how they can make their own change. Help them see that, oh, okay, you are still trying to figure out what, say for example for falls, you're still trying to figure out, okay, what caused this fall? Why did you fall? And so many times people are able to better understand themselves and what happened when they talk it out. So we are there to kind of just facilitate their thinking. And so for me, though it was a group, I was able to facilitate thinking by asking, okay, what is it that had caused your fall? And some people said, oh, we're not sure. Well, then what were you doing while you're doing it? Do you remember what you're thinking about at the time? What's your house look like? So I looked at many different factors, and fall prevention is multifactorial, meaning that you look at many different things that can affect a person. That can be in their environment, which is what's around them. That can be the person themselves, which can be fear of falling, confidence with being able to not fall, knowledge around falling, and then also how they do the activity. So in our fall risk factors, we went through each fall risk factor. You see there's older age, there's clutter, loose rugs, poor vision, foot problems. I went through all this, and yes, I made this on a bingo site, free bingo site, and I just printed out a whole bunch of cards for everyone. And so I put in all the fall risk factors that are the biggest ones I could find, and then we went over each one in depth, going over kind of support group style. I asked, so what do you do to prevent this from happening? Say loose rugs. What do you do to prevent people from tripping over rugs? And then if there's people who want to keep their rugs, we go over, well, what are some things that you'd be willing to do with those rugs? And then we also went over muscle weakness and poor balance by addressing ways that you can strengthen the muscles as well as after you have fallen. So if you fall, and this goes in line with fear of falling, to stop yourself from fearing falling, you could think of ways that if you do happen to fall, what can you do to prevent big accidents? And so we went over stuff like that. And some people had mentioned how they had fallen on pavement because they, one, weren't paying attention. So that is somewhere in here. But not paying attention, or not good footwear, so wearing slippers and you trip over stuff. So what can you do? Sure, you can wear proper footwear. Sure, you can try to remember, oh, there's a step there. But what about setting up the environment, setting up your surroundings? If there's an uneven surface, which is somewhere in here, uneven floor surface, how about marking it? How about putting a strip of tape there so people are like, oh, what's that? And maybe they'll go around it, rather than being like, oh, remember that there's an uneven surface there. People will forget. Sometimes you have to go around the floor. I mean, sometimes you're there with your friends and you forget, or you're rushing off to somewhere and you forget there's an uneven surface, or that there's a step. So sometimes you could tape the floor with a different color tape, make a high contrast so that you can easily see the surface and you'll know, oh, don't go there. So there's really a lot of small tweaks that you can do to try to help prevent falls. And this is just one of the strategies that I had implemented for today's event in Fall Risk Bingo. And I'm going to try to do a Fall Risk Scavenger Hunt later, because we got a lot of people wanting more of this. And so we're gonna do a Fall Risk Scavenger Hunt, which is kind of like the second piece to this, because here's the fall risk factors. Then my scavenger hunt is going to be one where it's a fall risk prevention. So it's solutions to preventing all this. And we're gonna have it everywhere, and then we're gonna list all these fall risk factors, and they're gonna have to search around for those scavenger hunt pieces and match them to the fall risk factors. So fall risk factors match with the scavenger hunt solutions together. So it's going to be really interesting, and I can't wait for that to happen. So I hope you guys like this. OT Life Hacker out. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.